Last year, Neonic released a paddle that a lot of people thought was the very best paddle for under $100, myself included, and that was the Neonic Force. Neonic has somehow now one-upped themselves with the release of their new paddle, the Neonic Flow. I promise I'll do my very best to be unbiased in this review, but honestly, if I were to stop doing reviews completely and pick just one paddle to play with, it would be the Flow. I've been speaking with other reviewers as well, and though it's early on, it's clear that this is going to be one of the more popular paddles of the coming year. It has the look, the playability, and the right price. With this channel's discount code PBMED, you can sneak away with one of these paddles for $117, which I think is an absolute steal and easily makes this one of my top picks for value per dollar spent. So here's the important info and stats. The Neonic Flow is a hybrid-shaped paddle that measures 16.25 inches long and has a flared paddle face that is 7.4 inches wide at the bottom and subtly increases to 7.625 inches at the top, giving it a generous sweet spot much like other hybrid-shaped paddles like the Double Black Diamond, the Loco, or the Ruby. It has a 5-inch handle that I feel gives me plenty of room for two hands, and when you set it side by side some other hybrid-shaped paddles, you'll notice that the bottom part of the paddle face doesn't cut in quite as strongly as some of the other hybrid-shaped paddles. The downside to this is that there is less room in comparison for two-handed grips, but the pro to this is that it does make the paddle feel more balanced and less head-heavy with the lower weight distribution. Even with the weight I had added from lead tape, holding it side by side my other hybrid paddles, it was still the lightest feeling one in my inventory, which is actually a little surprising because the Flow is 16mm thick, so much like their previous Neonic Force paddle, Neonic has found a way to create a thicker paddle with an overall lighter feel. The Flow is thermoformed and it's made with genuine Toray T700 carbon fiber, and it shows. The paddle surface feels pretty coarse, and after having felt and played with many paddles at this point, it's clear that this was made with quality material. The twist weight came back at 6.48 and the swing weight came back at 115. Comparing this to other popular hybrid-shaped paddles, this puts it in the same ballpark but just a couple of points lower than the new Infinity Double Black Diamond at 117, the 𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐄 Pro at 117, �W𝐀𝐒𝐒𝐓 Kinetic at 116, and the Bread and Butter Loco coming in a few points lower even at 114. And subjectively speaking, like I had said before, the Flow felt a little lighter when it was actually in my hands than the rest of these paddles, and it certainly felt maneuverable in gameplay. It also demonstrated excellent spin, with RPM measurements coming back at 2061, which again puts it in the same ballpark as the Bread and Butter Filth at 2085, and the measurements I had for the Infinity Double Black Diamond at 2049. I think the Flow teeters back and forth between being a good control paddle and being an all-around core paddle, and has some pretty unique features. I felt very comfortable with drops, dinks, and otherwise good shot placement, but the thing that makes the Flow stand out to me is the plush feel and the associated pop. It feels nice and plush when you swing softly, but it gets exponentially more poppy when you swing hard or you grab it more firmly for hard blocks. This made a particular difference in hands battles and overheads, as I felt I had significantly more put-away power than I did with other conventional control paddles. This also made it so that I could hit a higher percentage of digs across the net, especially when I was out of position, as the pop gave me enough help to get the ball over the net, but not too much to get me in trouble from pop-ups. To put it in context, it's definitely more poppy than the Infinity Double Black Diamond, a little more poppy than the Bread and Butter Loco, and probably just edges out the 𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐄𝐒𝐓 in terms of pop. Every paddle has stronger and weaker parts of their playability aspects, so I'll say in terms of weaker aspects, if you're looking for a power paddle, this is not it. It's certainly not a weak paddle, and it has better overall power or top ball speed than some of our other top performing control paddles like the Mach 1 and 2 Forza or the Groove and Move and S series, but less power than the Mark Pickleball series, both the Kevlar and the carbon fiber versions, and is probably closest to the 𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐄𝐒𝐓 in terms of top ball speed generated, with one of the main differences between those two paddles being the stiffer face of the 𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐄𝐒𝐓 versus the more plush face of the Neonic Flow, and clearly the shape of these two paddles is totally different. I found the optimal lead tape placement for me to be directly at the sides of the paddle face at the 3 and 9 o'clock positions, which further widened the sweet spot and made the overall power adequate for me even in my most competitive games. For people that are fans of the original Neonic Force paddle, here are some key similarities and differences between it and the new Flow. For similarities, a healthy yet not too heavy level of pop has been carried over to the Flow, much like the Force has. Both are 16 millimeters in lightweight feeling, with the swing weight being a touch lower for the Flow at 115 compared to 117 for the Force. Both are very budget friendly, with the Force coming in a little cheaper at $89 after the BBMed discount code, and the Flow at $117 after the discount code. For notable differences, the Force is an elongated shape, while the new Flow is hybrid shaped. We see an increase in RPMs with the Flow, up from 1940 with the Force to 2061 with the Flow. The Flow has a more plush feeling face than the Force, and in terms of playability, I found that control, resets, and spin were a little easier with the Flow, while the Force was a little more powerful. And for our final comparison, we'll look at what your dollar will get you for some of my other favorite and top performing control paddles versus the Neonic Flow. After all available discount codes are applied to these various paddles, the Flow can be purchased at $117, the Loco for $140, the Mach2 Forza and the Groovin' Movin' S series at $162, the Infinity Double Black Diamond at $198, but is beaten in price by the budget king, the 𝐋𝐈𝐒𝐓 Mage Pro at $85. Though I think a large portion of people would probably really enjoy playing with the Neonic Flow, my final recommendation for you would be that this would probably be a good paddle for you if you're looking for a paddle with a plush feel, good pop, great spin and maneuverability, and kind of flirts with that line between being a control paddle and being an all-around all-court paddle. But this would certainly not be a good paddle for you if you're in the market for a real power paddle or you prefer paddles with more stiff feeling faces. That's my take on the Neonic Flow. I hope you enjoyed the review, and if you found it helpful, slap that subscribe button, and I'll see you here for the next one.